6 years ago, the failing PSHE department at Shoebury-Ness High School was completely overhauled. This is the story of how they turned it around and how it works now.
I arrived at the school April '96, and I was quite sorry to find that when I came to Shoebury-Ness, a school where youngsters very much need the personal and social education, I was sorry to find it had a very low priority on the curriculum.
Basically, you had 5 people in charge and something like 48 people delivering, and it just wasn't working.
I was fully aware that it had got a bit of a negative image, and we needed to resurrect that image. It needed completely rethinking, and I wanted to have a special team delivering it, a trained team, and I wanted it to have a timetabled slot.
I think I was very aware just how much work needed to be done. And although I had always classed myself as one of those people that had made an effort with PSHE, I recognised that most of what was in place was worth putting in the dustbin.
So a complete rethink happened. We decided that we would actually appoint a head of what was going to be the new PSHE curriculum. We had somebody within the school that I thought was a very dynamic teacher, was very switched on to the kinds of issues that PSHE needed to address.
I had to make radical changes really quickly, really effectively, to be able to grab hold of my year 9s and above, because they were already entrenched in PSHE. The waste of time, this is boring, we keep doing the same topics over and over again, those whole issues. And I knew that if I was going to have to take those kids with me and show them that it was worth doing, I had to do something fairly spectacular fairly quickly.
We also decided that it was no good continuing to call it PSHE because, as I say, it had a poor image and youngsters would just see it as more of the same.
We had a meeting, my team and I, and we changed it to what we call SCOPE, which is an acronym, and it stands for Social Curriculum Opportunities for Personal Education. But the way I sold it to the kids in assemblies was, we called it SCOPE because it has some. I then went for a very sort of corporate image. I chose a colour. Everything's orange. Everybody in the school knows that if it's orange, it's got something to do with SCOPE. That was again to heighten the profile, but at the same time so that everybody recognised resources as well. I also put a logo with it. I chose the umbrella because of the whole overarching topics that we do.
In her team of 13, only a few are dedicated PSHE teachers. So how does Sally ensure that lessons are consistent?
What I do is I sit down and I write a very, very detailed lesson plan. And I mean breathe in, breathe out lesson plans.
The aim of the lesson, therefore, is to explain the culture of fast food. And
for some of my staff, I could say, you've got to fill 100 minutes on healthy eating. And they'll go, no worries, Sal, I can sort that. I could say that to other members of staff and they'd look at me and go, you want me to what? For how long? Not a hope. So because I've got that disparity, I write the lesson plans, I set the lesson objectives, I say to my team, you can deliver it almost word for word, or you can as long as you hit the objectives and you can think of some way else to do it, be my guest. If you want to do what's happening in the lesson plan but in a different order, because you believe your group will work better with the circle time first and the video is the plenary, go for it. I give them as much autonomy in their classrooms as I can because I really don't want to produce mini-me's. I don't want 13 SCOPE teachers like me. I want diversity because I think the kids need that too. And every qualified teacher brings something different into the classroom.
To start off with, who can give me a definition of what fast food is? Hands up, please. No.
Takeaways.
Takeaways certainly are.
I produce the resources to go with the lesson plans. So if there's a worksheet, they're printed on orange because of the corporate colour. They're counted into 30s and they are ready for those members of staff to pick up.
No one goes to Burger King? Sometimes, but not in the last week. OK, fair enough.
If there's a video, there are always 10 copies run. They are run at the point where the the teacher has to use it. None of this skipping through to find the programme while the kids start playing up in the background. So I really do tie it down tight so that their behaviour management can be good and that they can have a really good lesson.
A lot of Sally's scope team specialise in other subjects. So she needs to create lesson plans that people from other subjects can work from. However, she's quite explicit at the beginning of the year when she says to her team when we get together that if there's any alterations you want to make to the lesson plans, if you feel things would work better in different orders, or if you want to expand on anything, or if you've got any creative things you want to do yourself within the lesson, please feel free. But they're kind of that safety net that's there for us if we need them there. What fast food restaurants or outlets do you know that you use, Bruce?
McDonald's.
Okay, McDonald's.
KFC.
McDonald's, what else?
Sunday, KFC.
So starting with McDonald's, hands up please if you've been there between now and last Tuesday. 2, 4, 5, okay.
There's a set of boxes that are in the scope office, and each one has the member of staff's label on it. And on the Friday each week, I replace all the I put all the new lesson plans out with all the resources they need for those lesson plans for every member of staff. So on the Monday, all they have to do is come and collect their stuff from their box. They can match their resource to their lesson plan because of the way they're designed, and they know exactly what they've got to take into the classroom with them for each of their lessons. Every lesson plan is designed with a teacher review section at the end. Each of the members of my staff have their teaching folders, and at the end of every lesson they are encouraged to write something that's a trigger for them. It could be something like, this was an awful lesson, my fault, didn't get the resources together well enough, or the organisation was useless, or found the discussion really difficult to motivate, but then again I'm tired. I tend to make comments like that myself on my lesson plans because sometimes it's not always a criticism of the lesson plan, it's a criticism of the circumstances you find yourself in that day, and we are all human. As I said earlier, they're not so much, they're quite didactic lessons, but they're very integrated lessons. There's lots happening all the time, and you have to be at least 2 steps ahead of the kids. You have to be on the ball. You have to be zappy and ready to go. And that's that zing that you put into your lessons is whether it's important that you walked in the room or not.
Miss George makes things fun in the way she teaches. It's just, you remember it instead of having to be crammed with it for your GCSE and certs.
Anywhere else? Done any of these?
No.
Good.
Oh,
Chinese, Chinese? That's it. Next.
Big Mac.
McDonald's. Lovely. Next.
McDonald's and fish and chips.
Lovely. Next.
McDonald's and pizza.
Lovely. Anywhere else? Next.
Indian and fish and chips.
Lovely.
What we tend to do at the end of a module, as opposed to a lesson, we draw little smiley faces on the board. So one's got a big grin and one's got a turned down mouth. Just the three. And I say to them, did you love it? Could you live with it? Did you hate it? If you hated it, I need to know why, and don't use the word boring. I said, I can't work with the word boring. You need to tell me what was boring. Was the section too long? Was the video not clear enough? Was the starter activity too involved? Tell me what was boring. Don't tell me it was boring.
I like it because a lot of stuff's hands-on rather than just writing down and stuff.
It's an exciting lesson and you do something different all the time, which is fun. Nothing boring about it.
Go on, my son. Well done, Mark.
The lessons split up into parts where you have your opportunities, and especially your ICT opportunities when you go home to do your homework. It has different opportunities in the lessons.
Some of the kids do say things that are really, really relevant. And if that's the case, those things are fed back to me and then I do action them. Every year I have rewritten the curriculum to action the points that the kids have given me to make it better. You don't ask kids opinions and then not action what they say, because very soon they recognise what's the point.
So the first thing really I need some feedback on is, if you glance through it or have a look at it, if you haven't experienced teaching it, is what do you think we're looking at? Are we looking at S-band? Are we looking at P-band?
Sally's challenge this year is to differentiate all the key Stage 3 lessons for the different ability groups, and she's brought members of her team together to share ideas.
Just reading it, I would say S-band.
Oh, the planning meeting today is a differentiation meeting. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a specific lesson plan that already exists. We will determine what sort of ability we think it really hits. It might be a success, it might be a progress, it might be achievement. And then what we will do is blitz ideas about how we can pull it in the other two directions.
Can you remember how the achievement kids got on with it?
Well, that's what I'm saying, struggled. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, they're P&A together for one, but we spent a long time at the beginning of the lesson literally going through each bullet point and then reinforcing it so that they would be able to cope with the quiz.
It's nice if we get to say something that we think hits the middle of the road, say the progress band, and then we say, right, what can we do about this to make it stretch the more able kids in the success band, and what can we do with this to make it more accessible for our less able kids in the achievement band. So it's pulling it in both directions. So hopefully by the end of the meeting we will have blitzed the ideas to create 3 separate lesson plans.
So I still think that's quite a lot.
If you're basing the quiz just on the second bit, then they can just sort of store away because they need to know what the Commonwealth is before they can do anything on it, haven't they? They've got to have that basic piece of information, haven't they?
It has cost us a fair amount of money. It's cost us curriculum time, dedicated curriculum time. It's cost us some staff salaries, it's cost us training, obviously, and it's cost us resources. It cannot be done on the cheap. And it's no good thinking, well, because we're not going to get examination grades at the end of it, that it's a low priority subject. It has to be up there with English, maths and science when the budget's handed out. So I think you've got to consider it from a financial point of view and get the governors to agree that it's worth its weight in gold.
I think you learn more about what's going to happen in the future instead of writing something down and knowing it for a test later on in a week or a month or for your SATs. You learn stuff about what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years.
If you ran a PSHE department, how would you run it? What ideas would you steal from here?
All of them. I'm very organised like Sally is, and I think the foundations of this department is how well she organises it and how well the kind of team work together.
You just learn about different things. Unlike with history, you learn historical things, and science, you learn scientific things. In Scope, you learn about everything.
I knew we could do it. I knew it could be done. I knew we could take PSHE from this horrendous, useless, time-wasting mess into something that was really worthwhile for the kids. And I put my money where my mouth was, really, and said, yeah, watch me, we can do this, and did create it. You know, obviously I thought we could do it. I had the vision, but it's so nice to be standing at the other end of 6 years saying, sorted.